And just like that, we are live for Triple T number 69 on April 25th, 2023. Who'd have thunk it? 69 episodes. Woo! My name is TJ Zebel. I lovingly refer to myself as a professional problem solver. And no, for those of you that have asked before, that doesn't mean I have the answers to everything, doesn't mean I know everything. I do have an uncanny ability to ask questions to help people solve their problems. And I have lots of ways you can get a hold of me. You can go to my website, which is the tswb.com, TSWB, the tall, skinny white boy.com. And I also offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's 30 minutes of my time for you to do with what you would like. Ask me whatever you would like. If you have some stuff that you need or would like work on, we work with all sorts of stuff, PTSD, anxiety, phobias. Lately, the universe has been sending me a whole lot of dating and relationship challenges, business challenges, money challenges. I've done a number of corporate coaching because guess what? CEOs, OOs, and FOs, and all the C's in the industry, I have found are still human beings. So I help humans with their human predicaments. What else? YouTube. For those of you watching live on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for your support. And for those of you that are watching this as a recording later, please do me a favor, do all the YouTube stuff. Click a bunch of buttons like subscribe and ring the bell and the comment section. Please leave me some comments. Yes, I will let you know, I do enjoy seeing comments. I'm like a kid. It's like that free little present you can drop in. If nothing else, tell me what your favorite takeaway was from the episode. And if you guys have, for those of you that have been on the call before, you know that the first hour, I have a couple of topics set up that I talk about, teach, and interact with you guys. And the second hour is open platform, open mic. Anybody on the call can present a question or a topic, and we let everybody on the call chime in with their 2 cents because I like to learn as well. And I have learned some really cool stuff on this because I've got some really cool people that invest their time, share their time with all of us, and that means a lot to me. Another thing I like to start out with is asking anybody on the call who was here last week or not, any cool things to share from the last 7 days since we were here on Planet TJ. Yeah.
I'll pop in. A couple of weeks ago, I asked you guys about hypnotic language and cause and effect and presuppositions and all that good stuff. And there's one that's not coming to mind and I can't think of it, but it's going really, really well. And thank you all for your input. I greatly appreciate it.
It's what I love about this community, man. I tell you what, you put out a question and people will sit there and try to help and find answers to the questions. And the wealth of knowledge that you guys bring humbles me often. I feel honored to be in your tribe and so honored that you are willing to be part of mine. And now with all that lovely mush, anybody else got anything they want to share from the last 7 days, or is it time to dive headfirst into this week's topics? I'll take that silence as a, come on, TJ, let's go. Get on, go. Well, this week's topics for episode number 69, push-pull protocols, 3-chair for dating, and manifesting tips. I can see the smiles already going. I'm not sure which one brought that on, but does anybody know what I mean when I talk about push-pull archetypes, push-pull personalities? I see a few of these going on. I've become pretty well versed in it because I will openly admit it was one of the biggest things I had to work on before I was ready to be married or in any type of relationship. The best way that I've learned to teach this, especially for those that are coming to me for relationships, is how to recognize it, what it looks like, why it happens a majority of the time. And I have to admit, some of the insights that I've gotten from clients that I've been working with have taken it to a whole different level. Now, the easiest way that I've found to visualize the concept of push-pull in relationships of pretty much any kind, and understand this is a universal. Men and women all have the ability to be push-pull archetypes. And so if you can envision a target of 5 rings with a bullseye, and that's distances, I guess you could say, emotional distancing from the bullseye, push-pull archetypes want to keep people at ring number 3. Anytime somebody tries to come in closer and they hit like ring number 2, that's when the push-pull archetype will be like, it's getting a little, you're kind of getting into my personal zone here, and they will find ways to push back, push you away back to ring number 3 where their comfort level is. In contrast, if they see you starting to drift towards ring number 4, now they're at risk of possibly losing you, because 5 and beyond, that's, if you've passed ring number 5, that's a burned bridge. We're done. You're ghosted. You're blocked. Done. And so anytime they see somebody starting to drift into region number 4, that's where the push-pull is like, oh, what? Oh, no, come here, babe. Oh, come, oh, and they'll push all the right buttons and they'll say the nice things and draw their person back in to ring number 3. The concept of somebody making it into ring number 1 can sometimes actually give a push-pull almost like an anxiety attack, because the responsibility and the potential for heartbreak is too high. What I found with a lot of my clients who had to work on their push-pull tendencies, like I did, a majority of them had their heart broken a number of times, especially at a young age, and didn't find a way to deal with it. And it wasn't just in dating. To share a little bit about me, my best friend lived a block away. And I refer to his dad as my rich dad. If you've read Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, his dad was my rich dad. And I was pretty much family there. Mom knew that if I wasn't home, I was there. And it's amazing because now that I think back about it, man, there were times where mom and dad just didn't question. If I didn't come home, I was over at my friend's place. But we were free range parented. We could have been dead out in the middle of the woods, and they wouldn't have known for 3 days because they would have just assumed we were at the other place. But I digress. His parents were so much of a family to me that when his parents got divorced when I was 12, it was the equivalent to my parents getting divorced. But I never was, I wasn't treated like, oh, your parents got divorced? Because they weren't my parents by blood. And when I was working on myself, especially on the push-pull, I realized that that was my first major relationship anchor, because it hurt me so bad that mom and dad split up and mom basically moved away, and I didn't get to spend time with her because dad kept the house a block away and mom moved away. And then, of course, the typical school crushes and blah, 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 and watching my best friend, who was a full-on player, break the hearts of so many women. And I was the rescuer. And what I found out is a majority of the real push-pull archetypes are the nice guys. They're the ones that get friend-zoned 2000. Oh, I wish I could have a nice, sweet guy like you. Well, I'm a nice, sweet, single, nice guy right here. Yeah, but not you. Like, you're my friend. I'd rather go out with that jerk that's going to tear me to shreds, treat me like feces, because I know that you'll come rescue me when it's all over. And what do we learn? Man, it's a wicked world out there. So we create the push-pull archetype of, you know what? I think I'm just going to keep you around ring 3. And the funny part about that is a lot of, I jokingly refer to us push-pull archetypes as marriage preppers. because most of the people that we're in relationships with marry the next person they date, because we're the nice, sweet people, and we teach them that they are worth being treated respectfully. And so they readjust their values and criteria to where they want somebody who is nice and sweet and treats them right, who will also allow them to go to the inner circle, which us push-pull people would never allow. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions, comments, ahas, epiphanies on that? Saba.
Hi, everybody. First, I love how you explained that in a way of push-pull archetype. And personally, I can speak about the topic without mentioning the attachment style. To me, there is not just different attachment styles, but we all have all of the attachment styles inside of us. Yeah. And one of the easiest ways to explain, like in a book called Attached, it's a great book to get into it and start to understand the concept. You start to understand that inside of you, there is anxious, there is avoidant, and there is secure attachment. So, and then different people can trigger different parts of you, and more they're triggered, more they come up, and more the repetition is what really creates sort of your personality, which is your personal reality, like Joe Dispenza says, which really means it can be all changed. And so let's say if you're in a safe relationship, then you feel secure and that doesn't come up so much. Now, the question is, like you said, in the real situation, what do you do when you get triggered? Well, first, one of the things that I say to my clients is that you observe what's happening. What am I triggered by? Sometimes, like you said, that's early childhood memory. Maybe it's related to your mother or your father or something that happened a long time ago. And that way you can look at it. But also by not engaging in relationships that are triggering, by not engaging in playing games, by not engaging and be open and calling out, being so mindful to be and being so honest. It's kind of like what you want other person to do to you, and be like, yes, hey, I'm noticing that you are doing this and you might be playing into it. So I'm just curious. I want to know, where are we standing? Is that what it is? And you notice the repetition, and if you see the pattern inside of someone else that's triggering you, if you don't call out on that, I feel, TJ, and you guys, I'm curious what you guys think, but I believe, like Benjamin Franklin said, honesty is the best policy. And if you're really up for that, if you're trying to trigger each other and really make each other miserable in a romantic relationship, then, well, more power to you. But I think, I had a lady briefly session. She came to me 5 years. She was in the most horrific relationship, and all she was associated herself is positive memories. And then she was completely neglecting and kind of putting aside all the pain that person created, right? So sometimes we got to, make those pictures bigger and look at them for what they are, and then really start to realize, what is this? Am I deserving that? And I think also, just briefly, if I can summarize, I think everything comes down to self-love. Because if you really love and respect yourself, other people will do it too. And I think if you feel that you're going to go more towards secure attachment. You're not going to let someone drive you and trigger you, because first you're going to notice, oh, I've been triggered. Okay, this is a great opportunity to notice and to change something inside. I'm sorry if I took too long.
No. That's what this is all about. I appreciate your input big time. Thanks for sharing. And you're right that, what my clients, like your clients, are finding out, the more they understand these different attachment styles, the more they understand push-pull archetypes, things of that nature, the easier it is for them to recognize it's not always them. You know, a lot of the people, you know, like one of the things that I'm finding more and more, and I pointed out to some of my clients, true narcissists are rarely push-pulls. They don't care. They don't give a rip. If you're not into them, off with you. It's the nice guy, it's the nice people, the sweethearts that have had their hearts ripped out, tossed into a blender, and then thrown out on the street for the buzzards 3, 4, 5 times. They're the ones that are like, you know, I'll do anything for you as long as you stay in ring 3. I'll be your best friend. I will exist in friend zone 2000 because that's where I grew up and where I feel comfortable. The other thing that I've noticed about push-pulls, they have a tendency to go and search out truly unavailable relationships. Because it's really easy to pull somebody into ring 3 if they're truly unavailable. You don't have to worry about them wanting to migrate to a level 2 or a level 1. They also tend to have a lot of side affairs because there's another. They don't have to worry about them saying anything. They don't have to worry about them wanting to get anywhere beyond ring 3. It's a safe relationship in their mind, and they can still be the nice person. A lot of it, you'll also find push-pulls that have done a lot of traveling because it was really easy for them to justify level 3 relationship, ring 3 relationship under the guise of, well, I'm not going to be here very long. And they'll be right up front and they'll have a lot of fun. And then it's off to the next town or country or whatever. So for the people that are on the other side of the coin, who are realizing that they're in a relationship with a push-pull, how do you deal with it? And a lot of it's going to depend on the push-pull. How deeply seated are they into that archetype? What are they afraid of? What have they survived from their past? What is their subconscious protecting them from? A huge amount of the time, it's all about protection. You know, the subconscious is like, whoa, 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 they're getting in close. Remember what happened last time? Remember what we went through? And giving them the knowledge and the safety of space, but also letting them know that they're going to have to trust somebody at some time. And it doesn't matter how many times they've been hurt in the past, they survived it. And there's no guarantee, regardless in relationships anyway. So why not go all in? What's the worst that can happen? Same thing, you survived 15 other times. except for the people that married their high school sweethearts, trying to explain this to them is sometimes a little foreign. Like, I hope you never have to understand what we're talking about. They're saying. It's like kind of like people who have survived cancer, trying to explain, the people that have never had it are like, is it really that bad? I hope you never understand. I hope you never understand. But again, there are multiple ways. The first thing is to recognize that archetype as quickly as possible. And then finding ways to evaluate and understand how deeply seated are they into their push-pull beliefs, activities, safety, whatever. And if they're so deeply seated into it and not willing to work on themselves, you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to be friends at best. And I know I'm still friends with 90% of the women I've dated, because I was a full-on classic push-pull deluxe. And the 10% that won't talk to me are mainly because they tried everything they could think of to get into level 2 or level 1. And I pushed them, kept them at bay long enough that they got resentful. Yes, Ella.
So I would like to mention one more thing. It's really also hard to talk about this without saying that there is a fear of rejection that's being triggered when people pull away. So let's say we have a newspaper and then we crunch it and we tie like a string to it. And then we have a little cat that has a reptilian brain just like us. And then we pull that thing away from the cat and the cat keeps running. And once you say, okay, well, the play is over, and you throw that right in front of the cat looks at it and all of a sudden walks away. Yeah. Now, it's interesting that people will pull away when you make them too important. But also, there is that push-pull. It's like even your own body, if you put your hands like this and you try pushing one, it's going to push back. You try pull, it's going to pull back. Now, we have that response. It's inside of us, deeply ingrained. Now, the question is, can we use our conscious mind and make an agreement and say, at that moment when you feel like pulling back, say, wait, like, how important is this for you? Because I personally realize, TJ, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but if you're being ignored, the best thing to do is just leave, walk away, and never turn back. Because again, ignoring is also another thing that we have to bring up here, just like being triggered by those patterns of oh my God, abandonment issues, right? So yes, someone might play into that ignoring, so they trigger you, right? So what's the best thing to do? And I think also extremely important for people who are conscious, like you guys here, dating someone who's completely unconscious can be very, very, it's almost like someone is sinking and you're trying to give them a hand and they pull you and they bite you. And Jordan Peterson says your responsibility is to let go of their hand. Otherwise, you're going to drown too.
Exactly. And Elijah pointed in chat that the reptile brain chases what runs away and runs away from what chases. And that is very, very typical of a push-pull. And another quote is, in any relationship, the one who cares the least is the most in control. And it's a sad, sad state of affairs, but it is true enough to be true. And the easiest victim for that, especially, are people with low self-esteem, poor self-image. They are the easiest to manipulate by a push-pull. And oftentimes you will see marriages with this archetype. Somebody with a poor self-esteem, poor self-image, with a push-pull, and they're both sweethearts. But when you look at them, they're roommates at best. Because one is so guarded and the other is too afraid to walk away. Because who's gonna pick him up outside of the relationship? And this is where, a couple of the clients that I've worked with, when we started working on this, all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, that's me." I'm like, so what are you going to do about it? And that's where the healing begins. And I'm going to do a real slide and segue to the next subject of 3-chair for dating. And we've gone over 3-chair therapy a number of times. For those of you that are watching for the first time and you're not sure what I'm talking about, if you go back to some of the other recordings, you'll get this more in depth with the explanations behind it. But real quick, you visualize in your head 3 separate chairs, 2 chairs facing each other, one off to the side as an observer. And in 3-chair therapy for dating protocol, what I had was a client who was dealing with a classical push-pull. And so I had them do 3-chair, and they brought in the avatar of the person that they were trying to date. And I had them rise up and go and sit down into the avatar of the person that they were dating, this traditional push-pull. And their energy shifted just like that. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, I feel nauseated. The energy that's in my gut is so sad. Why are they sad?" And I said, a lot of push-pulls are sad inside because they've tasted level 1 relationships. They want it. They've just been burned by it too many times that they're afraid of it. And as such, they keep everything at arm's length where it's safe. And when I had the client do 3-chair, they were talking back and forth, and then I had them rise up and go into chair 3 and watch the interaction and watch the energy. The ahas, epiphanies, and downloads that happened in such a short time. When they came out of trance, they were like, they had never seen it that way before. They had never quite understood. And when I had them go back through the recordings of the relationships that they've had and not had, and people that they'd been around, they quickly realized that a large amount of the people that were in the friend zone really wanted them badly, but were so afraid of them having to, they were so afraid of having to defend them from getting into a level 2 or level 1. It just wasn't worth the energy. So they simply chose to be the nice person, the friend. Any ahas, epiphanies, questions, downloads regarding that? Anybody? Yes, Sabo.
I'd like to say one more thing. I think someone might
Please.
find this really, really valuable. In the relationship, someone who is more pushing, or in other words, being anxious, having anxious attachment style, might call out on things like loyalty is important, honesty, communication, right? And it might seem really important, right? It might seem like they're making a great point, but deeper underneath, it's that feeling of like coming towards the person, right? Does it make sense? And then we have the different attachment style, which is anxious, avoidant. And of course, again, as I said, this can all be in one person. It can be triggered differently in different situations and with different people. Now, what avoidant people do is they say freedom is important. And it seems so right. And also at the same time, what they're really saying is they're using the activation strategy. They're pulling away because a lot of times there is another one that's really important. It's a fear of intimacy. And I'm just going to stop there.
Oh, no, keep going. You're on. This is good stuff, bro. This is why I do this.
Thank you, TJ. So just recognizing and spending more time in a secure attachment, noticing what triggers you and how you can make yourself feel safe. And sometimes it's just like techniques that we do here with you on the webinar. Sometimes it can be that Paul McKenna has this havening technique. It goes something like this, and it just feels like you soothe yourself and you feel, you are enough for yourself. You're worthy and you're lovable just the way you are. You're okay the way you are. It's okay not to be okay too. And just accepting yourself is to me so important in having a healthy relationship, because what you give out is what comes back, and you attract exactly what you become. So like Joe Dispenza says, you want a really, really, really good person, really nice person, how you want him to be. Then he goes, okay, go inside of your mind and become that person, because that's what you're going to attract.
Exactly. Another thing especially for like recovering push-pulls, is the importance of learning more and more about how to be in a relationship. Finding out simple tools like, how many of you have heard of the 36 questions to love? There's also 50 questions to fall in love deeper. And people that are in a relationship, they're like, wow, hey, we're good. Well, what if you were better? Well, we've been married for blah, 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 blah. Well, do you still date? Date night is that important. I've watched way too many relationships turn into roommate situations. They completely forget why they started spending time together. What drew you to each other? And so stuff, again, like 36 questions to fall in love deeper, ironically, are the are kind of based on 3 magic question protocol. And they're a values and criteria style question, open-ended question. And I like what Elijah just put up here, intimacy, into me, see. The fear is coming from not fully accepting oneself and therefore being okay with showing that vulnerable side of yourself to another. And the more you get accepted and find out that you are in a safe location with your person, with stuff like that, it makes level 2, level 1, and bullseye, the magic ring, an acceptable place to live without having to have the concept of the chase or worrying about whether or not the chase is going to end. Anybody else got any input, ahas, epiphanies? I can feel the energy. Don't hold him back. You know the rules here. No? All right. Well, that leaves us more on the questions, please. Oh, thank you, Fran. There are actually, for people that are in relationships, there's actually a couple of phone apps that have them broke up to questions for her to ask, questions for him to ask. And you can use it for dating, or you can use it for date night when you're in a relationship. What I teach my clients, especially those that are looking to be in a relationship, is to download the questions, and you don't have to. Lenora said, for the record, once in a relationship, the work for self and the work together keeps going. Absolutely. And with the 36 questions, what I tell my clients is download the questions, whether it be the 36 or the 50 list, doesn't matter. Read through them, and there will be 2 or 3 that really stand out that you really like. And it makes it much easier to make it a natural question. So you're not going to your person going, hey, I want us to be in a better relationship, so I downloaded this 36 questions to fall in love deeper. So here's a question. Well, then it's kind of like, oh. So what I teach my clients is make it like, hey, you wouldn't believe what I overheard today. They, heard these people talking, and one of them asked this question, and I thought it was kind of a cool question. And so I was wondering, like, if you could have lunch, supper, whatever, if you could spend a day with anybody at all, who would you spend the day with? And it could be alive or dead, real or fictitious. Who would you, and you know what? You guys know what's going on, but for the sake of of this recording stuff, if you have somebody that popped into mind, would you mind typing the answer into the chat here, or just come on the mic quick and tell me who it might be? Somebody? Anybody? Hello? Come on. Is this on? Testing. John Overdurf. Awesome. Who else has got an answer? King Solomon. Oh, wow. Great answer. Anybody else? One of mine would be my mother's father, my grandfather, who passed away when I was 5. And I would just love to spend the day just talking to him. You rock, Mo. But the cool part is when they give you the answer, then you get to dig deeper. So what is it about King Solomon that would make you want to pick that one person for the day? And all of a sudden, values and criteria elicitation is on a run. And the two of you are in a very unique conversation that opens up intimacy safely. And yes, it works with anybody. It doesn't have to be better ways to, you can ask anybody these questions because it builds deeper rapport quickly and easily. And so there's these little tools that are out there that are almost hidden in plain sight, and they seem almost to be too simple to work, especially as well as they do. Anybody got any questions, ahas, epiphanies, anything they would like to share? Oh, so people can ask themselves, why am I in love with this person? Is it because I'm constantly triggered or because I am feeling loved? That is a great one for 3-chair as well. A lot of people don't understand that you can use 3-chair therapy to get more clarity about who you are. And yes, Fran, you can 3-chair the person you would like to spend the day with and really get some fascinating insights when you get to sit down in their avatar and feel what they feel, see what they see, hear what they hear, and think and smell what they think and smell. Yes.
Question. When you're doing that, and this might just be me, how do you trust yourself on the information that you come up with? Or does anybody else question it? Or you're like, no, that's it. That's true. Even though you gave it to yourself, do you find that you question it?
My first answer, that is, Elijah hit it perfectly. Ask each brain, head, heart, and gut.
Okay.
And that's where, like with my client today, that I did 3-chair for the push-pull that they're trying to date. It's exactly what I told them. They were like, is that for real? I said, ask your 3 brains independently. They were like, oh my, wow, 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 wow. I'm like, true enough to be true, real enough to be real. And if nobody has anybody or anything else to add to that, we can move right into, oh, yes. Go ahead, Linda.
I was going to say, with those impressions like that, I know it can be hard to trust them. But having been trained in remote viewing and doing as much of it as I have, which provides hard, solid feedback for all your impressions, it's gotten a lot easier to trust myself and my impressions. And it's gotten it actually trains you to be able to determine between a correct and an incorrect perception, and it'll really boost your accuracy rate. So I'm going to say that you can tell, and it's hard to have the skill set if you haven't practiced, and it's much harder to trust it if you haven't been through the process and learned to evaluate your own impressions. But once you've done that, you can realize how incredibly accurate you can be.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And even Elijah put in the chat, I'm surprised just how often my gut is correct. Absolutely. And what I've found, women are predominantly better at hearing their gut brain talk than guys are. And that's just an evolutionary thing. The main issue that I've found with people when we bring that up, and I've talked about this before, is we too often make the mistake of letting our head brain interview the heart brain and the gut brain and then tell us what they think, instead of stepping out and we, as the main entity, interview the head brain separately, the heart brain and the gut brain separately, and coming up with our own conclusion, which everybody's like, well, isn't that your head brain doing it anyway? No, because when you step that far out, what you're going to find out is you'll hear your head brain trying to justify what the other two say, and you go, no. What do you have to say about it? And all of a sudden, you now have 3 different answers. Whereas before, it was, well, I wonder how I should feel about this. And the conscious goes, I got it. Hold on. And it asks the gut brain, it asks the heart brain, and then it goes, well, here's what I came up with. Like, you're letting the 2-year-old conclude between those two for you? The 2-year-old? Really? Well, what kind of cereal should we have today? The 2-year-old's like, we're not even talking to the gut and the heart. I know what we want. And all of a sudden you find yourself with Fruity Pebbles. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Fruity Pebbles, but I've got a feeling that the gut brain is going, that's not the answer that I was submitting. And the heart brain was going, I kind of understand it, but yeah, I didn't give that one either. And the 2-year-old's going, I don't care. You all are a bunch of dum-dums because Fruity Pebbles are the bomb. And Lenora, as a female, you question a few things? A few things? Good. That's where most of the lessons evolve from. I worry more about the people that don't question anything. Sheeple. And that leaves us with 6 minutes. It's amazing. Is it just me, or am I just picking topics for the first hour that both have about a half an hour of conversation capability, or which I'm fine with? Maybe I should just start only having 2 topics, but sure enough, if I only have 2, we'll cover both of them in a half an hour, and then I'll have to start referring to my phone. So, should we tidy up anything else on 3-chair for dating and three brain and leave manifesting tips for next week? Or do you guys have enough input where does anybody want to make a motion to have manifesting tips as one of the first questions for the second hour? Then here's what I'm going to do. Oh, Fran said more on dating and relationships, please. That's a pretty big topic. So did you have any particular question, Fran, or anything that, like, I just want to make sure, otherwise I could rant for 7 hours on. Yes, Sabo.
There is that story about this guy who was trying to talk to the girl, and he got frozen. He couldn't say a word. He was thinking, and he said, oh, what if she says, you're the worst, and you're such a waste of time, get out, I don't want to talk to you. And then the question is what he says to himself. And if he says to himself what he was going to say, let's say he was going to say, oh, I knew it, I'm just a piece of shit, I knew I'm not worth it. And then of course he's going to feel bad, and his picture in his mind of himself will be so small. But if he stops in his mind and he goes, well, thank God I'm not going to spend my life with this bitch. And then he starts to think in terms of, let's say you have numbers. Let's say there is like a card game and you have like 9 hearts. And your job is to go to the other person and see if they have 9 hearts. If the card they have is not matching your card, then you wish them a good rest of the day or life or whatever the case is. So in other words, really this metaphor is saying that you want to make sure they are good enough for you, not just if you're good enough for them. And that's that game changer to me, the understanding of like, yes, I am good enough. And yes, I will get what I deserve, and I will also become better. So that the idea of being better than yesterday and worse than tomorrow, working on yourself. I think, and that's what I think for masculine. And if we can't talk about this topic, but not to mention masculine and feminine. For masculine, it's really important to have the goal to truly be not just okay. Let's say it's very easy to play the game, right? Someone says, you make yourself unavailable and you do this, but it's gonna crack sooner or later. People will see the truth. So if you're really living your masculine and you have your goal, whether you have your business, your projects, your life, you're truly gonna give all the signals that are attractive to feminine. And if she's being truly herself and being caring, charismatic, and what she is, so I think to me everything comes down to honesty and self-worth. Because if we just go there to see if we are, because going back to triggers, TJ, really quick, all of these things come back to validation. Like if you don't believe in yourself, you're going to go out there and try to validate yourself. And in my early 20s, I caught myself doing that many times. Oh, her approval means that I'm good enough. It's so unconsciously. And it was such a powerful drive because it was the unconscious drive and I wasn't aware. And once I became aware, then, let's start to unravel this and see what's really beneath. And therefore, that's where I felt I gained a lot of power, of course, reading books and constantly putting things in a context.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. And when you had brought up cards, I use that metaphor all the time in my relationship stuff where, I bring up you're the king or queen of your kingdom, all the above. And so many people are I'm just going to say wasting time trying to turn a 9 into a king or a queen. And I tell them, stop with that. when they show you they are a 9 or a 10 or an 8, believe them. And that's nothing against them. They are somebody else's king or queen. They are not yours. Let them go so that they can find the person who they are matched up to. But you can't go to Vegas and be at the poker table and be needing a king or a queen, and they flip down a 9, and you're like, but you could be a king. You could be just, if you would just work on yourself, and the rest of the people at the table are like, excuse me, it's a 9. I know it's a 9, but I really need a king or a queen. So if we just give it some time, maybe give it a few books, suggest a seminar, they could become. No. There are 4 kings, there are 4 queens in every deck of cards. How do you find it? Flipping the cards. The faster you flip the cards, the quicker you find the king or the queen. Hit me. Oh, a 3. Next. Hit me. Oh, a 10. Next. And
if the opportunity presents itself, never be afraid to double down.
Yeah. But so many people get stuck in the fixer-upper game. That's fine for a house or a car. If you got the money, if you got the time, if you got the knowledge, knock yourself out. For yourself, absolutely. We are all fixer-uppers. We're not broken, but we have the ability to become better than we were yesterday. And one of the protocols when I have my relationship people, and I know I'm cutting into your guys' time, is I will, and you've heard me say it before, I will have them start a journal, My Perfect Person. And I will have them describe in minute detail every single thing that they can think of about this person, their exact height, their body shape, their hair color, their eye color, and it goes right in with the manifesting. And I've had pushback from enough people. Oh, but we're not supposed to be that detailed, And I'm like, the universe has access to unlimited things. How many people are on the planet? For you to believe that there isn't one person on this entire planet that the universe cannot assemble that matches your infinite detail because you were conscious enough to put it in paper and writing, seems to me a little pessimistic, a little egotistical. There is nobody that can match what I'm looking for because I'm so special. I gotta have, so I'm just gonna have to settle because for someone that amazing to exist, oh my gosh, no, they're out there. Well, why haven't I met them now? A, because you weren't ready, and B, they probably weren't ready. When you get to be my age, and I'll be with you in just a second, Savo, when you get to be my age, they're probably finalizing their first divorce. Sounds kind of, but they weren't ready for you yet. And you weren't ready for them yet. The other reason for the list is you go, if this person exists, they do. Oh my! But then I go, now look through the list And is there anything about you that you can work on to make sure that you are everything they are looking for? And that's a little epiphany for a few people, because all of a sudden they're like, well, what exactly do you mean? I'm like, well, you have to make sure that if you're putting an order in for this level of person, that you are the level of person that this person would be attracted to. And one of the things that I didn't come up with it, but the first time I heard it, I cracked up and went, there's so much truth to that. And it's the saying, no matter how rich or how beautiful they are, someone is sick of their shit. You want proof? Look at Hollywood. Some of the most attractive, rich people on the planet who are lonely, miserable, divorced, how many times? So it's just important for you to evaluate the list. And I don't want people going into it with the pessimistic of, well, I don't deserve somebody this amazing. Yes, you do. Well, this person would never accept me for my past. Yes, they will. Because every king has its queen. Every queen has their king. And that 9 that you've been pining over is somebody else's king, hands down. And there are 4 of each in each deck of cards. Make sure that you are properly aligned. Yes, there's a king, 4 kings and 4 queens. But when the King of Hearts finds the Queen of Hearts, and it won't matter how effed up their history, their past, their life, what they've done, where they came from, what they know, their level of education, their belief systems, nothing will matter. And the cool part about that, that's where you see some of these Hollywood elites, and all of a sudden they're married to the pool guy who isn't that attractive. But he'd worked on himself enough that he was the match. He was the king that they've been looking for. Okay, Sabo, I cut into your time. Please share.
TJ, actually, the reason I think why I'm sharing is because your energy is so good and stories you tell. I love it tonight, really. Specifically, I think you should do a separate workshop on this topic. And it just inspires me to add a few things. So one of the things that maybe some of the people would like to talk about in the second hour would also be, because this seems like an interesting topic to many, something like codependency, and why are people who are so wounded in the past recreating those events? So let's talk about, let's say, enablers. Let's say a young girl who was she was looking at her mom putting up with alcoholic father, maybe who was on narcissistic side, and she's looking for partners unconsciously, because we all know that we really mostly do where unconscious drives us, and we follow those unconscious beliefs and drives more than the conscious ones. So subconsciously she's looking, and logically she's finding excuses why she's putting up with that behavior. And then we have young men who were dealing with narcissistic mothers, and then they find a bitch, excuse my language, but the woman who is being maybe mean to them and being being arrogant and maybe even cheating on them, and then they try to make her into a pussycat, where it's just so what I think is happening is the subconscious will always recreate the problem so that it can solve the problem.
Yes. Anybody else this is your hour, so who's got something to share on this amazing topic?
Hi. It's not necessarily on this topic, but just to piggyback off the last thing Sava said about creating problems so that you can solve the problem. I have discovered a universal formula for literally every single person that speaks to me who has a problem and wants to experience change. Would you like to hear it? The problem is not the problem. The problem is how they are trying to fix the problem. And it works every single time. It's in the methodology that's being used, there's nothing wrong with wanting what you want, but the way people are going about trying to get what they want is where the errors are. And as a coach, if you kind of stick to that, you will always be successful eventually, assuming you have the correct, energy and all that stuff. Yeah, thank you.
And Fran had a question that she put in the chat. So what happens when the body energy doesn't match King's in even any sense at all? The reptile wants what the reptile wants. And getting into crazy stuff, add in past alternative life connections that don't make sense in this lifetime. And yes, I'll let you guys answer that first. I do have some input on that. Anybody want to?
I'll jump in first. This kind of is to both of them. Two totally different answers, but they both are coming into my mind. So one of them is I watched a thing a while back. I can't even remember who it was that did this presentation, but they talked about that psychologically, when we say we're looking for love, the way the brain usually translates that is we're looking for what's familiar. And so if we grew up in an abusive place, we translate that's what familiar is. That's what feels safe. That's what I'm used to. And so I need that with my partner when I grow up. But the other thing that comes to my mind is, and I thought it was interesting that Sava put it, that we create it over and over again. But there is kind of an energetic rule that says, if you have a lesson that you need to learn, you'll periodically, you have two choices every time it comes up. You can either learn it, or you could take it long enough that it needs to resolve. And then basically you're putting it off to have it come back into your life again. So whatever energetic lesson it is, whatever that may be, if you don't learn the lesson, it will just keep repeating and repeating and repeating, trying to give you a chance to learn the lesson next time it comes around.
Awesome answer. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that? Silence. Okay, silence works. And yes, that's another part that I like to teach my clients is to be cognitive of the energy and why and where's it coming from. Because as Fran pointed out, the lizard wants what the lizard wants. Well, of course it does. And you don't have to not recognize the lizard. In fact, that question comes up a lot with the wait to date protocol, where when I bring it out, they're like, I have to wait a whole year. Oh my God, I'm just trying to get into a relationship. Now you're telling me I got to wait another year. I'm like, I'm telling you to take 365 days to do the most intense research you've ever done into values and criteria, into noticing your energy. What kind of energy do you notice inside of you when you are around certain types of people? Put them into trance and have them, after they've gone through their list of their perfect person, create an avatar while in trance and spend some time with that avatar and recognize what color or colors of energy come out of that person. And when that energy comes out, what color or colors of energy are created within you? Who does this perfect person turn you into? Who do you become when you're around your perfect person? We all know that being around certain people changes us, whether we're cognizant of it or not, good and bad. There are certain people that when we're around them for a little while, it is like, gotta get away, gotta go, gotta go. Your energy sucks. And yet there are other people when we're around, it's just that, for some reason, they just smell good. Some people just smell like fresh baked cookies. And when you find that person, whether you bump into their shopping cart in the shopping mall, the reason I have my clients go through this so many times in trance and in the hologram deck is so that when that interaction happens and they look at that person, they're like, oh my gosh, that emerald green energy, they did that. And once they've learned Echo Talk, 3 Magic Questions, all the above, now they have the ability, excuse me, out of curiosity, where'd you get those shoes? Is there anything you don't like about them? Just a casual conversation so I can figure out why you triggered emerald green energy inside of me and why you happen to be physically everything written in my book. Are you potentially single? I don't see any restrictive jewelry on your hand. And this has happened to more than one of my clients. And this is where we throw in, the scene with, the doves flying over and the glitter shining out and the rainbow. No, not, that's in the movies. But we can arrange it for you, Fran. I mean, if
it's not just in the movies.
No, it's not just in the movies. I know, because my wife and I, when we met the second time, and both of us were in an emotional state where we could actually have a conversation, and I may or may not have possibly used some of the stuff that I teach, maybe. We're out in the parking lot talking until 2 a.m. And then history unfolded, and here I am. But that's where it has these setups, this work that I put my clients through, so that when they do meet that person, they're ready for them. And like Elijah pointed out, and the establishment of acceptable selective thinking. Because the one thing that I hear that drives me nuts when I tell them about this, the response of, well, I'll know when I see it. No, you won't. You would have had it already. In fact, a couple of my clients had been hanging around this person quite a while. There they were, blindly right in sight, hidden in full view. Yes, Sabo.
I think this would be also really valuable for someone who might be listening on YouTube, or maybe some of the people here now. It's really that you have given some of the greatest advices in the first part about relationships, and also just having more choices, having more confidence, being more thinking about what you want, becoming that. And also Elijah had this really good insight of when he said, how you solve problems, and the problem is not the problem, it's how you do it. So and also right now there might be some people who are still stuck in their relationship, and their answer to that, like you said, meeting someone new might be, oh yeah, TJ, that's great, what you're saying makes perfect sense, but I am just here stuck, and because blah 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 blah, whatever comes after is just the rationale. And the reason, and so I believe that there is something that I learned from Dr. Bandler in NLP. It's called threshold pattern. And sometimes people just take too much time to get to the point where the straw broke the camel's back, and they said enough is enough, never again. They waste years, and because they wasted so much time, they feel like even worse about themselves and go downward spiral, but yet they don't want to leave the familiar. They don't want to go towards unfamiliar, because that's what brain does. And then even though there's not enough pleasure and fun, yet they stay with what's familiar. So now the question is how to get out of that rabbit hole. And I'm just going to say what I think is one of the ways, and I'm not going to go too long. And I would like to ask you, what do you think, TJ, and the rest of the people? One of the things that I find very powerful with my clients and with myself is to look at things that have happened in relationship, and to go and to use some sort of a deactivation strategy. If you say, is this good for me? How does this make me feel? Am I growing or I'm dying inside? Because there's not really the alternative. That's just one or the other. And if your answer is no, like I feel like I can be so much more and I deserve so much more, then you can use some of the deactivation strategies. You can see a person doing things and saying things to you that made you feel really bad, and almost like you can see their face at their worst, and remember those memories, make those big pictures, make that voice louder. And and then maybe you're just blowing out of proportion some positive pictures when you were with someone in bed making love and giving each other compliments, because that's what your brain wants. So it keeps on giving you that. So if you shrink those down, and I'm not asking you to shrink them down all the way, but just so where you can compare and really ask yourself, is this what I want? Because that's the package, that's everything. And then you make a choice, a free choice. And so that way, when you communicate with your unconscious, think about some of the things you're really sick of, and you look at that and you go, oh. And when you sigh, you let yourself know, I'm done with this. And so that's some of the ways in which we can communicate to our unconscious and put things into perspective so that we can include our conscious mind. It's almost the same as when we go on a date, and first 7 days, you don't really want to get so much emotionally attached because you want to test and make sure, just like tomatoes, you touch tomato, you poke tomato, you smell it, you make sure it's a good tomato, right? And some people forget to test their partners, and I think they get so emotionally wrapped in, and then they think through emotion. They're not looking at the emotion, and that's that.
Exactly. And I appreciate you sharing that. And even Elijah put in the chat, yeah, because the time spent equates to an investment, and people hate to lose on their investments. And to date, I've had 3 or 4 couples come to me after one of them came to me to work on themselves. They're like, oh, I really want my partner to come in and work with you. And the first thing I tell them is, I am not a marriage counselor. I will work with both of you independently, but I want to let you know that in doing so, you may find out that you may have to go separate ways, because I am not going to push you either direction. I will, however, make you do a lot of introspective, teach you how to talk to your 3 brains. I will do a lot of 3-chair therapy. And when it comes out, I don't need to know what you've been through. I don't want to hear your stories of how they're a blah, 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 and blah, 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 and they did this and they said that and all. No, because I'm not here to strengthen or tear apart your relationship. I am here to turn you into a better version of yourself. And in doing so, your partner will look at you probably differently, and you're probably going to look at your partner differently. So are you willing to do that? And I've had 2 couples that were willing to do that, and 2 other ones that went, ooh. They're evaluating the skeletons in their closet going, this probably won't work so well. And the 2 that I did work with ended up 50-50. One couple looked at each other and realized they had become roommates and wanted more. And ironically, they had known it, not surprisingly, but their split was so much more amicable. They were just simply, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. And the other couple were like, wow, when I was in 3-chair, really? That's true? And they learned about, I know, surprisingly, Echo Talk, 3 Magic Questions, values and criteria. I know, go figure, taught them the trifecta, and they started communicating better. What a concept. And in doing so, they realized that they had simply forgotten how to talk to each other. They'd been talking at each other, but forgot how to talk with each other. And Fran just asked the question, so how do you find a way to keep the rainbows and sparkles while letting the 8 go? Sparkles are addictive. Sparkles are addictive. Anybody got some answers for that? Because we're in our second hour, and I always want you guys to answer before I do. So who can answer Fran's question, please?
I'm gonna pop in. Fran, if it is an agreeable 8 and that you're dating to date to keep company and that it's just to keep company, that would be my thought process initially, unless you're saying, nope, I don't even want to waste my time. So what do you want?
When the sense says the person's an 8, but the body and the reaction and the sparkles are there really strong, it's a matter of how to create that without the person who's a disaster. So for myself, I've been playing with deep trance identification and bringing the sparkles into me, but I still haven't got the intensity that I want. I'm greedy.
You're not greedy. You're magnificent. And perhaps to use it as a guideline as, hey, you're hot on the trail and this is going exactly in the direction that you're headed. You're just not there yet.
I've got plenty of answers for this, so we're not going to change topics until anybody else got any input for her?
I got a couple things. I would recommend looking into what's her name? Esther Perel, I believe is her name, who talks about, first of all, just how to keep the spark alive, because when you get into a relationship, you get safety, you get familiarity, but that can also take the spark out. So it's about getting that balance between we can trust each other, we feel safe with each other, but we still have unexpected. Esther Perel is her name. If you just Google her, lots of stuff. She's a relationship expert on, keeping the spark alive in relationships, basically. And then the other thought, though, that comes to me, I was watching a Jordan Peterson video recently, and he talks about that sometimes you need to tell your partner what you need to be happy. And a lot of times we think, oh, no, they should just intuit it. It's not romantic if I don't tell them. And so I think a lot of times that's why we go for the 8, because the 8, isn't safe, isn't respectful, but they're so exciting. But the 10 can become exciting if we communicate it with them and if we are honest with them. And then also if we make an effort to sometimes create distance and sometimes create a little bit of danger and mystery and, get that balance.
I hadn't realized the danger aspect. Thank you. Yes, a bit of adrenaline, a bit of white knuckling.
Anybody else? This is the exact reason for the 1-year wait to date protocol. 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks can be a blast. You're not going out finding on a quest to find your king during the wait to date. You're finding out what creates the sparkles. What is it about this person that I like? What is it about this person that makes them an 8? Because the list, your journal of my perfect person isn't all of the best parts about them. It's also the things that you won't settle for. If you don't want to be around a smoker, you put on there, does not smoke. If you're somebody who's gone through treatment for alcohol or whatever, you put in person either whatever comfort level you are with. They drink 1 or 2 drinks. They only drink on weekends. They don't drink at all. If you have certain food particulates that you don't agree with, you put in there that they're in alignment with that. Because sure enough, the universe sometimes likes to test us. They will give you that person where you're like, oh, and then you find out that you're a pig farmer and they're Jewish. Has nothing against Jews. It's just you know that would probably not go well with the family. And so, yes, go out there and so you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince, and you have to kiss a lot of princes to make sure they're not frogs. And that's why when I get the pushback with my clients about the wait to date protocol, and they're like, well, but you're telling me I can't have sex? I'm like, are you over 18? Yes, you can make your own choice. In fact, I'm definitely not going to tell you that you can't enjoy some intimate time, because this is also your time to experiment. Be as wild and crazy and experimental as you can get away with in your 365 days. If you've always wondered what it would be like to be 17 again and bang it out in the car, out by the lake, try it, because you're not here to capture your king during the 365 days. Doesn't mean you won't meet him. That's a possibility. My wife screwed up my 1 year protocol. I only made it almost 9 months. But in those 8-9 months, I was the most genuine person I had ever been. I didn't settle for anything. And I went out and I had more flippin' fun in a year than I had in a long time. And not just going out being crazy and doing fun stuff. I went out on more dates with more different women without any pressure, none. And it allowed me to be exactly who I thought I wanted to be. It allowed me to ask questions that I would have normally been terrified to ask. And it allowed me to be more honest than I had ever been before, because I wasn't worried about the outcome. Yes, Fran.
Following on from what you're saying, TJ, I think that even in the disasters, there's the opportunity to find out a lot more about who you are and who you want to be.
Yes.
And even if it's an absolute wipeout, if you look at what you can learn, what you can gain, what you can do for you without even worrying about the other person, it's just a wonderful opening of opportunity.
Here's another part about that opportunity. Because I had no attachment on purpose and was able to act, do, and question in that freedom, I found out there were a couple of very cute sugar candy coated psychosis out there. I was like, woo. If I wasn't in the wait to date protocol, I would have been stuck to them, and I would have been trying to make excuses. And it was like, well, I can be your friend, but I am not going to be your therapist, and you need one. Just saying. And my wife asked me a couple of times, like, you went out with her? Well, yeah, a couple of times. Well, why didn't you stay with her? I was like, well, for one, I was in the wait to date protocol. And for two, no. And 8, good looking 8, but 8, maybe a 9, didn't care, wasn't a queen. Somebody else's queen, not mine. So, any other questions or stuff on that? Yes, Sava.
To me, by doing that, it's really great the way you put it together. It's your experience, and I think it's so valuable. You cannot put a price tag on the experience that you had, and it's just a great way to learn about people and to test some of your own skills, to learn about yourself, most importantly, going on dates like that, just talking to people. And when it seems like at that period of time you were feeling so secure, and then of course that you were attracting some people who were extremely insecure. And then it's important also to mention that there is that to differentiate the secure attachment and insecure attachment, which is insecure attachment can be very toxic, and insecure people, again, going back to either they're being avoidant, and avoidant people, you will recognize avoidant people because they will always they always hope there is the one. They always think there is going to be someone who is going to fulfill all my desires and fill in all the gaps in my life. And they're always the ones who are trying to be right, who are trying to prove, who are all so afraid of judgment, which is really ties down to insecure attachment. And then we have people who are anxious. Now, the idea of being with someone who has anxious attachment can be so attractive, because you think, those people are the ones who give you attention, who want to give you their time. But yet there is this, it's very tied closely to control. They're also the ones who are going to try to control you, going to try to take your freedom away. So by just being aware and open of not just the other people, but your own patterns through that experience, TJ, like you said, a year or so, I think it's just something that, think everybody should gift themselves and just go and have some fun and, make the most out of it, at least.
Thank you. And one of the things I tell people, during this year, you are required to go out way more than you ever have. Do way more things than you ever have. Try things that you never would have. Meetup is an amazing platform for this. And if there's not a whole lot of options in Meetup, pick one. Chances are you're going to meet somebody there who said the same thing, like, I'm not really into underwater basket weaving, but I want to have something to do on Saturday afternoon, so I showed up. That may be the one thing that sparked you two off as something you had in common. What a great story. And Lenora, I know you got something to add to this.
I just wanted to say to anybody who is listening, or anybody who's single, and being in this group, being in this community of being self-aware and going deeper is so incredibly powerful. It is absolutely extraordinary that you've learned what you've learned, because I didn't know any of this. And well, I got married very, very young, and I did all this work that we have come to do in a relationship. And there are times where you, hands down, feel like a mess. And, you don't know how to communicate because you're trying to clear out so much of your own shit, in addition to figuring out what somebody else's shit is bringing into the relationship and trying to not sink the ship. And it's truly wonderful that you are all here already doing the work. So use the tools that you have. Trust yourself in your skill set. You know how to be testing. You know how to drill down to values and criteria and to make it fun. These are the tools. These are your protection that you did not have when you first started out in your earlier relationships or whatever, wherever you are in life. Let this be your guide and to get you to where you want to go. It is so incredibly beautiful and wonderful that you know this stuff and you're learning and that you're open. It's okay. Keep going, keep searching, keep looking for your 8s, your 9s, your 10s, and don't settle, because it really is so worth it to do the inside work, also then do the outside work, but to enjoy it and find the beauty along the journey.
Thank you so much for that vulnerability and transparency. Yeah. For anybody that's out there thinking relationships are easy, you ain't been in one yet. Or you got blessed with the magic match of the perfect king to the perfect queen early on. And I watch those people and I'm like, wow, in awe. I mean, as a wedding DJ for 18 years, I gained a very strong sixth sense where I could watch the bride and groom and judge how long the relationship would last. Oh, there were a couple of them where I'm like, why are we even doing this? I mean, what a waste of time and money and energy. Why didn't you guys just elope to Vegas, get married at the Elvis Chapel of Lights and, bang each other's brains out for, a day or two, and divorces are us at the other end of the block, and bada boom, bada bing, you're done. And then there were the other ones where you looked at them and all the stars aligned, the prophecy was fulfilled, and these two were the soulmates that were meant to be together throughout history. And I watched that. And I'm friends on Facebook with 3 or 4 of those that I just knew. And so far, they are proving my gut instinct to be correct. Now, obviously on Facebook, you can't judge everything, but they're playing the part very well. Yes, Sabo.
Since this unexpectedly, I love how you go with the flow and the whole, how would I say, episode or this video is going to make perfect sense because everything ties together. So I was thinking, like, towards the end, maybe if we could talk a little bit about masculine and feminine. Why is that and I'm not just saying men and women, because obviously exactly, men can be feminine and vice versa. So why is that masculine energy needs and wants and craves, desires the care, that the presence of a woman, respect and all of that? And why is that a feminine energy just so much wants and craves protection of masculine energy, strong masculine energy that can make decision, take a lead? Why is it so deeply ingrained in us? And whatever else you would like to add on that.
First, I'm going to take Fran's hand up. Fran?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask questions heading in another direction as well, but maybe they'll meet up in the middle because, it's probably something that just happens like that. What I wanted to pick on was, you've identified relationships where everything lines up. And that's great until maybe some external event situation comes in and changes everything, changes the people. How do you come back from that when you've got this really good foundation material, but there's this event, unexpected situation, and it changes who these people are? How can you find your way back? Is it possible?
Yeah, lots of answers to that. Linda's got her hand up.
Just to address Savo's question really quick. Why is it? It's kind of a funny answer. I mean, from the women's perspective, she's got to have a man who can protect her and her children so that they can survive and provide for them and get them food. And for the men, I don't know, because I don't have that perspective. But I'll tell you this, the sacred masculine and feminine is that she brings him the magic. She puts him in touch with his feelings. She brings magic to his world, and he makes her safe to move about the world and to find the magic and to bring it back to him. So that's a quick synopsis of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. There's more to it than that, but that's just the quickie version. So that might help.
Awesome. Elijah.
Oh, I actually didn't have anything to say. I'll just raise my hand because everyone's raising their hand and I wanted to just jump on a bandwagon. You can go ahead and answer now.
I'm going to try and tie the two together. Caroline, Chinese fakery, The best explanation that I've heard so far with masculine and feminine energy is understanding the concept of yin and yang. You have to have opposites in where the end of one is the beginning of the other. And the masculine energy is the cup that supports and holds the feminine energy. Doesn't matter if it's male or female, especially in these days, but they have to have a place to fit. And even as with Fran's scenario where life happens, something happens, and the people change. The evaluation still has to go on. Regardless of the situation that happened, you have to be able to have the ability to stand back and go, has this been a mortal hit? Just like when Lillian Bridges pointed out that we're just canoes on the river of life. And when we agree to be married, we don't jump into one canoe. We are still individuals paddling together down the river of life. We have only agreed to paddle next to each other for the rest of our lives and be there in the rough waters and rapids and all of the above. In good times and bad, sickness and health, But too many people don't spend enough time testing and working on themselves and working on the relationship and all the above. And all of a sudden, one day they wake up and oops, during the night, during the dark night of the soul, whatever, something happened and one of the partners ended up on a tributary and now there's a landmass between the two. And do they have enough fortitude to get back into the same body of water and get next to each other and paddle again? That they have to agree to paddle down the river, the portion of the river that they are currently on. And I've even got some people that I've been working with that they're up in years and their perfect partner has passed away. And now they are still dealing with such immense heartbreak and anger at the universe for taking their perfect partner away. And they will not invest the time or the energy into even remotely allowing the concept of another partner to be an option. Well, nobody could be the same as da, da, da. And I'm like, there are 4 kings in a deck. There are 4 queens in a deck. Why would you limit yourself to just one? Well, and I'm like, then flip cards. If in the remainder of your years you don't find that king again, then you know. But to sit curled up in your shell with half the energy and lamenting over what you had and staring at the closed door, you don't allow for the option of any other doors to be opened. Life's too flippin' short. Play as hard as you can. Be as happy as flippin' possible for whatever reason possible. And if you're up in years and you don't find your king, but you have a really good time with some 9s, 10s, and jacks, hey, you had a really good time. Because we don't get to take it with us when we go anyway. But while we're here, I know I've only got 2 minutes left, but I want to reference a class that Ken Guzzo is offering for the I don't know if it's a pre or post class for Hypnothoughts Live coming up in Las Vegas. But he gave a brief description of it, and I'll tell you what, I am this close to wanting to go there just to take that class. And I don't even remember the name of the class, but the concept is he hypnotically allows people to die and come back to life, because one of the great phenomena of the human form, is you see so many people that have near-death experience. They flatline, whatever, and they come back and they are completely changed. And the example that Ken gave in his description was you get these people that, you know, are aggressive money-making corporates that they go in and they buy businesses and just disassemble them and sell the parts because the parts are worth more than the whole, and they just destroy these businesses. And then all of a sudden they have a near-death experience and they wake up in the hospital room, and there's their corporate partners going, you know, glad you're back. We've got the acquisition coming in a couple of weeks. How do you want to handle it? And the people go, I think I want to be a painter. They're like, what? Because everything shifts. All of their values and criteria, their priorities, everything in that instant shifts. Just like that. And so, like Fran asked me here, how much good feelings can you fit in the rest of your life and fun? What if the answer was as much as you can grab onto? Like that amazing song by Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying. There was a great, and I know I'm going over time and I want to respect your guys' time, but there was a great short on Instagram where this guy comes up and he says, grabs the mic. Somebody was interviewing people and he just grabs the mic and he goes, hey, out of curiosity, if I told you that I'd give you $8 million and you can do whatever you want, would you take it? But of course, the guy's like, well, yeah. He goes, what if I told you that the only stipulation is you don't get to wake up in the morning? Would you still take the money? And the guy's like, well, no. That's right, because you're worth more than $1 million. Start living like it. Live like you were dying. What would you do if you found out you had a week left, a month left? What would you say? What would you do? That's why I love that song. Most of us are, you know, I've been told by a couple of friends when we were around rodeo, dude, you should be a bull rider. I'm like, no. The only way I want to be on the back of a rodeo bull is when it's in the freezer. I'll just sit on top and go, yeehaw! But if I knew I had a week to live, I might give it a shot just to see if I could make it 3 seconds. And no, I'm not dying that I know of. So you're stuck with me for a while. But I want you to think about that. How much flippin' fun can we fit into our time? How many lives can we change? How many smiles can we create? What kind of a difference, what kind of an impact can we make, even if it's just for ourselves? And how can we allow our partners to be the best? And how can we be the best? And how can we go out, if we're single, to find the best? Because you all deserve the best. So I do what I do, even when I go over 3 minutes, which means we have successfully done episode number 69. And for those of you that have made it all the way through the recording or the live or whatever, I get to finish with all the YouTube channel protocols to help me out. Share this with anybody that needs to hear it. Click the subscribe, click the bell. Please leave comments. Other than that, I will say it every single time. The one thing I can't give you guys back is time. And so for you to share your most valuable resource on this platform means the world to me. Always will. Your input, your knowledge, your comments, all the above makes it what it is, and I truly, truly appreciate it. So thank you. Go out in the world, be the best version of yourself you possibly can be. Be kind to each other, and hopefully I will see you back in 7. By the way, love you, Mom.